Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the organizers of this event. And I'm so glad speaking after the last two speakers, because really we do need to see this in terms of the right to resist, both in Gaza but internationally, everywhere around the world. Solidarity and support with Palestine means resisting this age of chaos, is acting with absolute impunity, lawlessness, criminal activity. The ICJ ruling, so important from South Africa. And let's look at the response of the Biden administration in league with all of the imperialist allies. I want to first say just a word on Rafah crossing, which as this was like step one, you could say, in the efforts to strangle and force Gaza into submission. And it failed, but it is a deadly, deadly process. There have been sanctions on Gaza for 17 years, ever since Hamas won the elections. These were UN sponsored elections, and their winning of it, the US and Israel both imposed really grievous sanctions on Gaza. Of course, it reached a whole new proportion in terms with the Israeli attacks and occupation after the October 7th military operation. But very important to see, and the complicity of Egypt also in the strangulation of Gaza, the complicity in terms of there are hundreds and hundreds of trucks. They stretch for miles at Rafah crossing, waiting to get into Gaza, and they are intentionally blocked. Now, Egypt is part of that. The U.S. is absolutely part of it. They set up this onerous condition as part of Camp David years ago. Every truck that goes to Rafah has to go 50 miles further to an Israeli base, be completely unloaded, box by box, piece by piece, scanned, sniffed, all kinds of things, and then go back and be searched again. It's an impossible, onerous procedure, and it's gone on for a long time. But if we're talking about the ICJ ruling, really, which called for an end to Israel's genocidal killing and an end to the blockade of food and water and fuel, of medicine to Gaza, the immediate response of the Biden administration to this World Court ruling was to do the opposite. The immediate response was to embrace Israel's unsubstantiated charges against UNRWA and cut off all funding to the vital supplies of all Palestinian refugees in Gaza, yes, and in the West Bank, in Lebanon, in Jordan, in Syria. It was an all-out act of war against the entire Palestinian people. That's the response. And the even initial response to the ICJ was a White House statement that said, it's meaningless. It's meaningless. And this is how they're operating. Today, international law is meaningless. We can see in the bombing of Iraq and Syria and Yemen that even the US Constitution, absolutely meaningless. The act of war against the Palestinian people is receiving total support from US, from Britain, from EU members, the NATO members, complete support, and support even on this totally fictitious charge against UNRWA. So what do we do here in the face of international lawlessness? I do think it's important, essential to support and spread the ICJ rulings and actions, but to call on the US and call everywhere in the world to suspend all weapons and all financial transfers to Israel. This is a very time when, in terms of the IDF conduct, they are targeting UN and UNRWA personnel. 150 UNRWA members literally executed. So we have to demand an end to deploying this armada of warships to the area that is targeting the resistance. It's essential to call for the funding of UNRWA that they provide the critical aid, education, healthcare in Gaza since 1950. And it's by far the biggest and most essential organization sustaining life. I'm very much part of an effort that went to Egypt, to Cairo in November, December. There have been several other efforts trying to focus attention on the Rafah crossing. But now I think we're really those efforts were met with only repression and arrests and so on. But now we're really in a new dimension with the expansion of bombing into the region, into Iraq and Syria and Yemen. Here was an action taken by the Ansarullah movement that led to not one death. If ever there was an action that only impacted profit, and that is the act of war. That's the reason there is a bombing of Yemen today. Their solidarity with Palestine, but also they are impacting Western corporate profits. So calling for an end to the bombing of Yemen and the bombing of Iraq and of Syria is an essential part, I think, of our responsibility. So thank you to the organizers of today. I think our response is in the streets, it's in the courts, it's in the media, and it's knowing that we are up against really widening and far more dangerous war. They are absolutely determined to defend the Israeli settler state and to defend their strategic ally, their outpost in the region that has always stood for racism and apartheid and war. And they seem determined to do it. But the people of the world at this point are stronger than they've ever been. Our collective voice is stronger, and we need to find new and creative ways in terms of impacting in every court, in every parliament. Supporting these efforts is important, but in the streets is also an essential place to be. In the blocking of ports and railroads, we want to support those actions legally and politically and with our feet. So there's no one action today that can be taken. I think it is an embrace of resistance and making collective demands, listening and supporting each other, and promoting all of these as widely as we can. So thank you.